speaker in a while on social media, and I think it's important, especially with all the different media things out there. There's things out there I don't even know exist. So all these new websites and all these new things. So I'm going to have her do an amazing presentation like she did last year. So we're so happy to have her here.
Thank you so much. So thank you to Donna and to Bob for bringing me back. And it's very interesting when Donna reached out to me and asked me to talk about social media stress. I was like, I don't know, that's a really big topic. There's so many different components when you want to talk about social media stress. So what I've really done is zeroed in on stress overall, and then I will narrow in on how it relates specifically to social media stress for you and your kids. But if I could first just kind of take a quick little poll so I have an idea of whether you have observed your children experiencing social media stress or coming to you about social media stress. Have you had that experience? So just a quick raise of hands so I have an idea of how many of you observe stress in your children from social media usage, or they don't come to you but you just see it. Most of you? Okay. Hands are down, so I'm not really sure there, but okay. And just stress, how many of you have observed stress in your children, right? Stress in your children, and that creates stress for you, right? So what I want to do today is talk to you guys about 3 key, because I'm going to keep this 20, 30 minutes max. Key 3 areas that are really important to pay attention to as it relates to social media stress or other stress, and just uncertainty in general. Because what we're talking about with social media is a new frontier that's always expanding and always changing, and the reality is you're never going to get a total grip on it, and neither are your children, just like the world itself. So I'm all about practicality. Rather than trying to come up with this specific plan about how to get a grip on a specific area on social media, what I want to do is help you guys realize how empowered you are and how empowered your children are to navigate uncertainty like social media, okay? So there's, like I said, there's 3 key areas that are really important, and they kind of build on each other. And I'll give you some stories to bring what I'm sharing with you to life. So the first area is never underestimate the value of your calm presence with your children. So, and again, I'm the perfect example of non-calm, like how I know what I know and why I'm an expert at what I'm an expert today is because I was like the hysterical controller, okay? My son's now in his junior year of high school at Dreyfus, but I'll take you back in time. I don't know, he might have been around 5 years old. And I don't remember if it was specifically social media, but it was bullying. And my child came running into the house and running upstairs, and I was in the bathroom, I remember, and he's just hysterically screaming and crying and out of his mind. So, of course, immediately I just reach out to hold him and to try to comfort him. But what I noticed is that I went into complete shutdown mode internally. I could not function. Something was going on with me where I was I just couldn't access my logic or my power to go outside and advocate for him. I just sat down on the tub. I was smart enough to call my husband. Can you go help him outside? But I remember sitting on that bathtub and I had so much regret, shame. What's wrong with me? Why can't I function right now? I was judging the heck out of myself. I really didn't know what was going on, but it was a really pivotal moment in my life because I decided in that moment, you know what? I'm going to figure out what is at play here because it's really important for me to show up in my love for my child, and clearly I can't do that right now, and that's a big part of why I left corporate America and I ended up becoming a divine intelligence coach, which really is just about human potential and human design. I wanted to know what's going on. So the point of telling you this story is that when we present in calm, we help our children access their calm. When we're out of our minds and we're disconnected from ourselves, there's something called mirror neurons in the brain. And so what we're experiencing energetically, we're radiating out about 10 feet from our bodies, and our children are experiencing that too. So this is not to have you guys beat yourself up with the bat like us women can do about like, I need to be better, I need to do better. I've done all that for you. What we want to do is like really gently and compassionately recognize that we all can get really overwhelmed really quickly and go into different coping styles. So I'm just going to give you an idea right now too of what those coping styles are. It's what you typically hear about: fight, flight, or freeze. So the fight are those of you who tend to go into fix it and control mode when you're feeling very overwhelmed. And I'm going to do the me too, because I think I'm all the modes, okay? Where you just get really overwhelmed or nervous and you just start trying to fix things and manage things. Then the flight mode is the distracting mode, where something overwhelming happens and now you just start scrolling on your phone, or there's many different ways that we can distract. Go shopping at the mall. We just kind of leave what's happening because we can't manage what's going on inside. And then the freeze mode is kind of what happened to me, where you just completely shut down. So what I want you to know is that we're all the same, and this is what happens when we get overwhelmed with stress. But you're empowered to meet circumstances with a calm presence when you understand what's at play internally and the benefits of that, okay? So stress, specifically as it relates to social media stress. And I talked to my son about this before this talk. What I'm going to tell you about in this talk has led to the kind of relationship I have now with my son, which I didn't have initially, where we talk about everything. And I said to him, what are the main social media stresses that you and your friends are experiencing? And he's like, cyberbullying and, likes and follows. Are there enough likes and follows? And comparing your life to somebody else's life. Fear of missing out, right? Seeing who the boyfriend is now dating. I mean, and then there's just the predators that lurk. Like I said, there's just so many different components to it. Is there anything that I'm missing that you guys would really want me to address or you're experiencing right now as it relates to social media stress? Please.
I would just say constant negative news presence in general.
Yeah.
Their reels on everything they see.
Oh, I love that. So, and again, are we really any different than our kids? Can we be real here? Are we really that different from our children in terms of looking at social media and fear of missing out and comparing ourselves to other people and content that shows up that we're like, oh my God, like I get stuff about animal cruelty. I want to pass out when this shows up on my feed because it shocks the heck out of me. So again, it's so important that I can access my own calm for myself, not just for my child. And what I'm going to share with you guys about for your children also applies to you. That how do we meet ourselves in the moments when we're overwhelmed or in shock or something happens on social media or somewhere else so that we can get calm. And why do we want to get calm? Because you can't access your wisdom when you're in amygdala hijack. The way that the brain works is there's the emotional brain, the amygdala, and then there's the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is your logic and your inspiration and your guidance system. We're all equipped with this inner guidance system. You can't access it when you've flipped your lid, and neither can your kids. This is a very big point that I want to make today. If you get nothing else out of this talk, please remember that your kids' brains under the age of 25 are not developed like our brains. Okay? And our brains are developed, and we still have problems when we feel threatened or scared and we go into that hijack state. They do not have the connection between the logic and the emotions. They're still building it until the age of 25. So they are truly in the amygdala when things are happening. They are just all emotions, okay? So in order to calm down, what I've learned is that we really need to learn how to accept our children fully in the state that they're in. But you can see how if you don't have number one, if you don't know how to be in your calm, you're not going to be able to accept them and they're out of control. I mean, this is what I found out. So the second point that I'm making is that we want to meet our children with acceptance and vulnerability, but that requires that we accept ourselves and our own emotions, and we can get vulnerable ourselves and recognize that we have many of the same insecurities and fears and reactions that our kids do. We're not so different. We just have more years under our belt. So this is a quick story I want to tell you guys about emotional overwhelm and how I really learned about just being a receiver, like a container, a trusted space for a child to just totally vomit their emotions on me. And it wasn't with my son this time. I coach a lot of different ages, a lot of young emerging adults. I love that age, so that they don't have to maybe have as much stress or addictions or problems that we've had for 30 years. I like to get them up front. But I had this friend of mine from high school who saw what I do on Facebook, and she contacted me and she said, you know, I'm really afraid for my daughter. I think she might even be suicidal. I don't know what to do. She's really like all over the place. Her cousin called me and says, I'm really worried about her. I said, all right, you know what? I'm not a therapist. I'm a coach. I'm a brain coach, but I'm really good intuitively at assessing things fast. I said, why don't you have her call me if she's open to it, and I'll give you my feedback on what I think is going on. And quickly, my assessment was, she's not really suicidal. What's happening here? So I said, let me have one session with her. In this session, so much emotion came at me. I didn't even know if I could handle it. I mean, I honestly was on the phone, like literally like kind of shaking and like, oh my gosh, this is so much, right? But I know about breathing, and I was accessing my breath, and I was just staying present with her. And I knew from my son, don't give any feedback right now, just listen, just listen. This girl unloaded for almost the entire hour. And then what happened, it was like a whole brand new person was sitting in front of me in that same hour. Just a total transformation. And what was uncovered on that call is that she grew up in a family where they don't feel feelings. How many of us have been in a family where either they don't feel feelings or anger is the predominant emotion? What's our relationship with emotions has a lot to do with how we embrace or reject emotions in our child, emotions in ourselves. You know, I remember a pediatrician telling me there's no good emotions and there's no bad emotions. It's just energy and motion. But we've been trained to believe this is a positive emotion and this is a negative emotion. And what I want to tell you is that's rubbish. There's no positive emotion or negative emotion. The issue really is how do we experience the emotion? What are we telling ourselves as we have the emotion? So one of the tools is going to be to embrace the emotions in your kid. Can you just be present and allow them to vent and release and express without judgment? And are you able to share some stories of your own about how it's hard for you too? I mean, that was a big gift as well. I wrote a book called Addictionland. When I was in high school, I was the valedictorian. I was the kid that everybody thought she's gonna do everything in her life. And I went to college and I had a complete meltdown, and I had more addictions than I could count because there was so much stress inside of me, and I did not feel safe to go to my parents and share what was really what's wrong with me, why do I feel this way? Because we're human beings, because you're human beings, because your kids are human beings, because we feel. It's one of the most beautiful parts about life. If we can't feel what's hard, we can't feel the joy either. So learning to look at these emotions differently. And so that second point that I was making again has to, oh, that's me. Okay, so that second point I was making again is, can we meet We meet our children with acceptance and vulnerability and let them know that we have some of the same fears and concerns and feelings that they do, and maybe even share some personal stories about that. That really creates an environment of trust with your children. And why is all of this so important? Because again, I'll get more specific into the social media. But without the calm presence, and without the acceptance, and without the relating to the fact that they're not different from you, that human beings are built this way and we have emotions, it's very unlikely that your kids are going to open up to you and come to you and share with you. So you can bring them all the information in the world that you want about this app and Headspace and how it's going to calm you down and you can breathe. You know, there's so many different things that we can bring to their attention, but it's a wall. I'm telling you, with all the work I've done over all the years, it's a wall, because it's a wall with you too. And if you check yourself, you know that if somebody creates safety for you, you open and share. But if you don't feel that sense of safety, guard it. That's how we are as human beings. So, you know, we've got this obvious problem of social media stress, but the latent problem that people really don't recognize is what's our relationship with ourselves and our own stress? You know, do we know about how to access our own calm? Do we know how to meet ourselves and our children with acceptance and love and not judging what's going on and knowing, because, you know, here we are again, we judge ourselves so much. I wouldn't even tell a lot of women about the struggles I was having because I was afraid you're going to judge me that I'm an inept parent. I mean, I'm a bright woman, but let me tell you, I was not going to share certain things with other women because I was so afraid, what are they going to think of me, that I don't know how to navigate this, okay? So I put all of this out there to help you all recognize that we're the same. Okay, so now we've set the stage for them to open and share and feel accepted, you know. And I remember again too, I just want to give you a quick example. My son came into my office. Again, something had happened on social media and he was very upset. And at that time, I was still working through what I'm sharing with you today and learning, practicing myself different techniques and ways. And that day, I was so overwhelmed, I just started to go into coach mode, what I do for a living, giving him perspective. And you could look at it this way, and you know, and my son pushed back. Mom, stop. This is why I don't come to you. Because you go into this fixing and theories and coaching, and I just need you to listen to me, okay? And I was like, whoa. And that was such a powerful moment too, because I could have reacted with my ego, but instead I chose to respond with my love, and I thanked him for being brave enough to say that to me. And I took it in and I utilized that information to be like, okay, let's see if I do this different, and I just begin to receive what happens. And everything started to change dramatically when I would just listen and validate. I hear you. I completely understand where you're coming from. That emotion makes sense to me. I feel that exact same way when somebody treats me that way. And now there's like this really level playing field, which takes us into the third key aspect of surmounting social media stress or any other stresses. So now we're talking about, you've established this trust between you and your child. Now you have a lot of space to explore. Now, and I'm talking about when things are calm. This is another thing I learned. When a child is in hijack, it's like a little kid having a tantrum on the floor. You can't talk sense to them. Their brain's hijacked. Don't even try, it's a waste of time. But when they calm down, don't forget to circle back later and go, remember when this was going on and I was just listening to you and I was there for you? How are you feeling now? Check in. Much calmer? Can we circle back and have a little talk about that? Because I'd like to explore that with you if you're open, you know? Which is what's happened now, is I go back with open-ended questions and curiosity, non-judgmental questions. mindfulness, mindful observation. So again, whatever you're going to share with your child, you want to be aware, am I practicing this myself? I was that kid. My mother was so wise. She had so much wisdom, but I would look at her life and I'd be like, I don't know. You're not doing what you're saying. Like, you know, so she wasn't doing what she was saying, so I discounted everything she said, even though what she said was accurate, but I couldn't make the connection. And again, we're not judging ourselves and, oh, I'm a fake. And we're just getting in touch with the fact, am I doing what I'm sharing with them that's going to work? Because it's going to work a lot better if you're doing it too. Okay, so this mindful observation part of it is just throwing this, so this is specific about social media, things that I've learned. Is just asking questions about, do you notice how you feel when you're on certain pages versus other pages? Would it be possible for you the next time you go onto social media just to notice what are the things that are soothing your nervous system and what are the things that are making you feel awful about yourself or feeling frightened inside? Just become aware of the difference and know that you have a choice to come off that page, or you have a choice to actually tell the platform that you don't want to see content like that anymore. And you also can teach the algorithms what you want to see. You can intentionally search guided meditation, I'm giving you an example, breath work. And once you put that into the algorithm, it's now, you guys know how this works, it's sending you 20 more things on that topic. So you can train the algorithms. That's one of the biggest tips I give people is you can train those algorithms to give you exactly what you want. I love my feed. My son, because it gives me inspirational quotes and just people who are authentic and speakers, and I put in exactly what I'm interested in, and that's what it feeds me. And I make sure to tell it I don't want to see that content anymore to get less of what I don't want and the people I don't want to see. And having conversations with your child about, you know, would it be possible for you to detach from that person? Unfollow, I guess is the word. Unfollow that person. How might it feel to just unfollow that person instead of staying connected to somebody who's harassing you or negative, like you said, really negative, right? The other thing is to be able to talk to your kids about unplugging, and do you unplug? You know, how many of us have the phones and carry the phones with us everywhere we go? And a lot of us are business people, my husband and I included, so like we've got to have, the phones are our way of connecting with clients. But just in the last 2 weeks, actually one of your teachers here at Heritage is a good friend of mine, and we said, you know, for 2 weeks, let's just have a little experiment. And let's not go onto our social media platforms. Like I'll go on to put content that's good for other people, but then I'm off. I'm not scrolling, I'm not looking at comments. I can't even begin to tell you guys how much more relaxed I have been over the past week. It's insane. So I'm no different either. Just because I do this for a living, I'm the same as all of you. We're the same as each other. What I want you to know though is you're empowered to show up for yourselves and your kid in a way where you're able to access your calm, and then you're able to access that inner guidance system. This is a really good analogy too, and then I'll wrap up. But you know, like, so with airplanes, with pilots, when they're flying, they have the big window and they have total, there's nothing impairing their vision. They have complete sight. They can see the horizon, they can see what else is in the sky, they can see the conditions. They can fly by looking out that front window. But then all of a sudden the storms come and you know, you can't see anything. It's totally dark, it's totally overcast, everything's obscured. So what do in an airplane? It's called, they fly by the instruments. So there's all these instruments that tell them, I'm flying east, I'm flying west, I'm upside down, I'm right side up, where to land, right? GPS, kind of like for your cars. Human design informs you that you have an internal guidance system, that you have an inner GPS, and your kids have an inner GPS, and this is a real thing. And you can get connected to it. And again, it just requires, though, when the brain is full with emotions, which for a lot of you, even though you're adults, your brains are overflowing with emotions because potentially you have never prioritized yourself to release some of that stored emotion. And then you blame yourself for not being able to show up or reacting at times when you're like, why do I react that way? It's because your brains have too much energy stored in them, and there's a way to move that energy out of your brain. So just to give you guys some insight to what's at play. But when I've coached CEOs, deans of colleges, young people. I just coached the other day a woman who was 75 who said to me, in 5 minutes, Kathy, you have given me a shift that I haven't had in 20 years of therapy, because I just was able to quickly explain human design and human potential and empower her and shift her into something she couldn't see. That's my gift that I like to give to you here today. So I'm going to close up just with the quick reminder again. The 3 points are that nothing compares to your calm presence as it relates to calming yourself down and calming your children down. The second point is vulnerability and acceptance, total acceptance of your child's experience. When you're looking at them and they look insane and out of their minds, and sometimes we look at ourselves in the mirror and we're like, I'm insane, I'm out of my mind, right? How do we meet them? How do we meet ourselves? Can we just go, human being, human experience, life is freaking stressful as heck sometimes. It's scary. How can I make it safe for them? How can I make it safe for myself? What do I need to do? And then that third point is, once you create that trusted space for yourself and your kids, you're going to be able to explore whatever you need to explore and talk about. I even talked to my son about the hidden apps. Do you guys know about the hidden apps? There's apps on the phone. Try that. There's apps that the kids hide what they want to go look at behind other apps. There's apps that they can put something behind. So that you think they're not seeing this and it's hidden behind something else. There's so much that's out there, but all I want you to know is I'm a resource if I can help any of you. I've connected with a lot of young people who have opened up profoundly to me because of my background with addiction and recovery, and I share that with my clients. I have lived through the nightmare of all different kinds of pressure and stress, and I've also lived through the transformation, and it's possible for you and your children, and I just want to thank you again for allowing me to come here and share with you. I hope that there's something helpful to you in what I share today. And I do have a little survey on the table. You don't have to fill the whole thing out, but I would love it if you would take the time just to give me a little feedback about what's helpful to you. So as I continue to move out and share this information with others, I can help them as well.
Do you want to do questions?
Sure. Sure, I love to answer any questions.
I actually have a question.
Please.
So my son, who's a sophomore here, he's had a very difficult year. A lot of it is silent bullying. Snapchat, which is a very difficult app because the parents really can't see what's going on.
Right.
He'll stare at himself in the mirror for hours. His teeth are bad. He's got perfect teeth. I'm ugly, mom. I'm this. I'm that. And he's like, I'm voted as the ugliest kid in the grade. And I'm like, Ben, I go, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you're probably the most gorgeous kid in the grade. I go, the kids that are telling you that are probably jealous of you.
Yes.
So I try to say the right things, but I feel like at times, whatever I say, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to navigate through that.
Yes.
Because I really just, you're sort of at a loss, because then you get a little frustrated, like, why can't he listen to me? That's why people sometimes, they do that because they feel bad about themselves.
Yes. So, and again, you're hitting a lot of the points that I talked about today because you're being so logical and you have such gifted perspective because you have a lot of years and you've made those connections, neural pathways in your brain that he has not made. He just doesn't have the capacity. I think this is like number one point. They don't have the capacity. Because if you don't get this, you're going to continue to be frustrated and come at them in a way that's not going to be helpful. They don't have that capacity. It doesn't mean when they're calm, you can't circle back and have perspective conversations. But in those moments when they're feeling the emotions of being rejected and bullied, and they're just lost in that insecurity and self-loathing and self-hatred, what they're really needing from us is for us to be able to just accept and embrace. That must be really hard. Meet them where they're at, acknowledge their experience, validate them. They need to know that they're heard by you, that I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you, I'm listening to what you're saying. That must be really, really hard. I've been through a couple things like that myself, maybe not to that same extent, but I remember when the girls left me out when I was in high school and how it made me feel and how much I hated myself. Like, get on that same level with them, okay? Because there's like hierarchy stuff that goes on in this world, and it's separative. It separates us. What we want to do is like reduce that separation and kind of meet them human to human, even though they're younger and there's certain things they're not going to get what you're saying. Instead of, that's what we do. We get overwhelmed and we go into fix it. This is very common and instinctual for us women. And so what I want to say too is give yourself grace and space to turn these things around. You're not going to be doing something for 20, 30, 40 years and then intellectually get what I'm saying today and turn it around. It doesn't happen. It's like you're just going to be aware, here I go again, controlling, fixing. This was what I used to have to do. Here's Coach Kathy again. And then I would say, Kathy, don't beat yourself up for this. You're awake, you're aware right now of what you're doing, and you know of other options, and like just practice turning it around, So then I would go back there and just sit with my son and let him just emote. This is the biggest thing. Let them sit. And it's hard to let them emote when you have too much emotion in you, because you start getting triggered. That's what happens. And now you're triggered and you're in your own head and you're not even present for that. And this is human, okay? But there's a way for you. I work with adults all the time about how to release energy out of their limbic system so that they get connected to their guidance system again. And it's not that hard. It's just you have to know what's going on. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. And back to your question again. Will you repeat for me, because I just want to make sure what I went over today. Did that address your question as well about the negativity?
You mentioned you could teach your algorithms things, but I guess I feel like I can tell my daughter that and she won't necessarily do it. I was going to give a follow-up question of, this might be kind of simplistic, but do you have any ideas on things that we could tell them to sign up for, like good news things or particular speakers or, any ideas of some
Yes, I mean, I would customize that with each individual family, because it really is, everybody is unique.
Right.
And a big part of really reaching our children is embracing their uniqueness. And what is it they're interested in, and what is it they're passionate about, and what is it they care about, not what we care about. We got to get cued in and open, And a lot of us have been really taught, this is the way to do it. Our parents taught us, this is how you do it, So we got trained. We all have been trained. But we have to eventually say to ourselves, is the training working? Is it effective? Am I getting calmer? Are they getting calmer? I mean, just to be honest with ourselves, right? Is it getting better or is it staying the same? And this is where I've saved people years and medication and time and all the money they spent, because without knowing really what's at play internally, you just end up going to these therapists or these different individuals. They let you vent on their, and I'm not knocking because there's great therapists, but I'm just saying what's at play is you're venting and you're doing a lot of what I'm telling you is the answer, but you don't really understand what's going on, and then you have to go back and pay again to vent. Well, I want to empower you and your children to do for yourselves. That's the kind of coaching I do. Okay? Yes?
So you were mentioning about us releasing emotions, our emotions in order to be functional.
Yes.
How do we do that? Is that through distraction? Like, say, for instance, I'm very physical, so a lot of times for me to release emotions, I have to, maybe it's because I feel like it's a physical release, like a workout or a walk, a brisk walk or something like that. Or is your verbal vomit of what's going on inside of you? Do you have?
So you're wanting to know how to get connected to your emotions and express your emotions. First of all, just do you even notice after how I shared and I opened up about what a whack-a-mole I can be, it creates a safe space, and then somebody asks a real question. You know, this is what I'm talking about creating in your homes too. So I love that because it's just very vulnerable. And yeah, how do you connect with the emotions and how do you express them? That's also going to be unique and individual a lot of times, but I do think we all have in common that energy will stagnate. And if you don't move, the energy will stagnate. So moving is a big part of moving energy, getting the energy to move. So any kind of exercise or movement is a great way. Going for a walk, and even with your kids, they put in the music, go for a walk. They're now moving the energy, or you're moving the energy. One of my favorite things that I tell clients to do is I have them go online. I don't even know who Hoffman is, but I found this list. It must be an institute that helps people with emotions. It was Hoffman's list of emotions and sensations. And you can print it off the internet. It's a one-pager. And when a child can simply name the emotion that they're feeling, they don't have to get swept away by it. And same for you. So getting in that's why I say no good emotions and no bad emotions. You get out of considering things, good emotions and bad emotions. It's just emotion, it's just energy and motion in your body. What would you call it? So I have my clients, especially my young clients, I have them put this on their phone, and I say, when you're feeling overwhelmed, pull out the list and just pick maybe 5 words that describe what's going on inside of you. This is mindfulness, this is observation, this is non-judgment. Just get connected with what's there. So they name it, how do you name something? Because you're connected to it. How would you even know what it is? Your intuition tells you what it is. You have a guidance system that says, that's anger, that's fear, that's confusion, right? We all have that. So you're using that to tap into, and amazingly, the energy moves through really, like it happened to me here. The number one fear in front of death is public speaking, okay? Seriously, who knew that? Number one, you knew that. I was like, thank God. When I looked up that stat, I was like, okay, because every time I feel like I'm going to barf or fall over before I speak, that's what's going on. I was sitting here and I had a surge come in me that I thought I was going to pass out. So I used that technique. I was like, insecurity, self-consciousness, excitement. I just started naming the feelings inside of me. It moved. I mean, these are things that really work, and you're empowered to do it. How great would it be for you to know you have what you need, because that's the truth. Everything you need is already inside of you, and it's in your kids. I used to feel pity for my son when he would get bullied. Oh my God, I'm so sorry that's happening to you. I've switched gears. You're amazing. You're powerful. You've got what it takes to navigate any uncertainty of your life, and so do I. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But he only lets me speak now because Coach Kathy has left the premises for him. No Coach Kathy is allowed with him. And he says to me, Mom, if they pay you, it's one thing, but I'm not paying you. I'm like, well, you should pay me for all the... So does that help?
Yes.
That's just one thing. But there's a lot of things, and again, that's what my whole expertise is in connecting you to you. You're not just verbalizing it, you're connecting to it through your intuition. You're getting connected. So what's happening here is you're connecting with instead of avoiding, rejecting, denying something's there. When you're opposing something inside of yourself, there's stress. That's called stress. That's what stress really is. Stress is not what's happening outside. So this is another thing. Maybe you don't know this. Stress is not what's happening outside. Stress is our relationship to what we're experiencing. How do we meet it? How do we feel it? How do we embrace it? How do we reject it? You know, do I numb out? I mean, I was the queen of numbing out with a million different things, alcohol, drugs. I mean, this is why I'm so helpful to the kids too, because a lot of them, suicide, mental health, addictions. I'm coaching a lot of kids. Gaming, already with the phones, the freaking gambling stuff for kids in college. I mean, what's out there is, there's a lot that they can get sucked into the vortex. But so can we, right? Can't we? How many of you have gone on the phone and next thing you know, you were going on for 5 minutes and you're on for 2 hours and you're so exhausted. Like, oh my God, this is like, to me, it's, not everybody's an empath, but I mean, for me, it's like a vampire sucked my blood out of me if I'm on there too long. So I have to notice that and go, no, go watch my little dog videos, which I love so much, my animals, and pop off. Any other questions?
You met so many clients and talked to many people. I only have 2 kids. Do you feel like the girls will feel the difference on the social media than boys, generally speaking?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, well, okay, let's not be, because again, we don't want to stereotype, because there's some very emotional boys. But by and large, even just the way we train our boys and the men have been trained, they're not as connected to their feelings, unfortunately. They've been trained that it's weak to feel. So a lot of them are really shut down. So there is a difference in how they can, I mean, even when stuff was going on, the bullying when I sent my husband out, he and I have since talked about the fact that he wasn't the healthiest either in that moment in his response. He was so shut down that he was capable of going outside and talking to the kids where I was overwhelmed and I couldn't. But the reality is he wants to be more available emotionally to our son as well. And more, I don't know if I'm making sense in sharing that, but right? So the men are disconnected, are more disconnected. The boys can be more disconnected, but there's no difference in their ability to feel or or their emotional system or how they can meet their emotions. But I do think the girls, there's a lot of studies that have come out recently, and they're in particular about the girls and being very concerned about girls' mental health and social media. But I promise you guys, what I shared with you today will make all the difference, because what we're really lacking is a trusted space to talk about what's going on. That's what's the real underlying issue with navigating any uncertainty, them going to college. There's so many things. College, you were talking about it today, and scary, and predators on campuses. Like, these are real things. So we're not denying that there's a lot of possibility for downfall on social media, but there's also, it's their social connection, it's entertainment, it's education. There's a lot of great things we can tap into through social media when we feel in control of ourselves in a different way, and they feel in control of themselves. And so we want to be giving them the message, you're not wrong for feeling what you feel. You have the ability to learn what works for you and what doesn't work for you. You have the capacity to make connections, and you will. And you will. And we'll do it together. That's the difference.
Do you have a book for us to read?
So, because I just did an event at another high school, and they took all the books, but I had one left. So this is my book called Addiction Land. There's a QR code on the table. So anybody who's interested, you can come up, take a picture of the QR code, and you'll have a connection. But that book, this book in particular, is about, in high school, all of the pressure I felt to perform and conform, and I didn't have anybody to go to, all the addictions that I experienced, and then how I moved out of all of those addictions. And at the end, it's just a bunch of stories, because people like stories. They don't want to be told a lot of stuff. Stories that bring to life a couple of points at the end of each vignette that have to do with what you need to know and what's possible for you, what you may not already know about your human design and your human potential. And so, that's what that's about. It's specifically about addiction. But you know what? Who doesn't have an addiction these days? I mean, there's so many different, how about thinking? People are like, oh, I don't have an addiction. I'm like, I'm going to challenge you on that. Do you tend to think all day long? Did you know that you actually can have quiet in your brain? I mean, I didn't know that for a long time. So everything's possible for you guys. Any other questions?
Just a quick follow-on to the girl
Yes.
social media connection. For those of us who are boy moms,
Yes.
and we see our boys in that disconnected state, as you were describing, as boy moms, encourage our boys to really create that connection to their emotions so it doesn't come out in a bad way later on.
Yes. And so again, it's going to be unique to a family. Like, is dad present? How does dad express? Is dad open to some coaching himself? I mean, usually when I work with families, I tend to work with the parents and the kids, because you can do that as a coach. That doesn't happen with therapy. But you know, sometimes we're navigating the family dynamic to understand what's at play there helps a lot. A lot of times it's literally, I start to work with the child first because I can create that trusted space really fast. And then helping the mom create a trusted space within herself, because a lot of times that's the disconnect of creating the trusted space. So it's usually like, it is the individuals, we gotta look at the individuals in the dynamic and who's open and who's not open, and then we go from there. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm so appreciative of all the questions, and like I said, those little sheets, if you guys don't mind, at the very least, just putting down what you're taking away, what helped you from the talk most today, you know, a sentence, whatever, that really is helpful to me. And I thank you so much for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.